This is Vince Russo from Ring of Glory, and you're listening to InYourHeadOnline.com.
All right, we're back. Welcome to In Your Head Wrestling Radio. I am the internet icon, the pride of the pilgrims, handsome Jackie Jones, along with my right-hand man.
1-inch biceps, the power goat. Yeah.
Excellent. And joining us right off the bat, he is the Pavarotti of hard shots to the body, the Pison that's got it going on, the fly Italian guy from SI, ECW original, founding member of the Baldies, multiple-time WCW champion, member of the NYC and TNA, former WWE superstar, the man who will give you a bruise that you can't refuse, the toughest man to ever wear a dress. We've got Big Vito with us.
That is the best intro I ever heard. Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be on this show. You're the only one who's got all that in, and you got it right.
Excellent.
I can't believe I am excited.
This is a good time. Anybody listen out there, if you want to call in, you want to talk to Vito, the number is 508-644-8503. We got a lot to talk about. Now, just recently, this is what everyone wants to know, Vito, is WWE.com. They had a thing up there. It was the biggest turkeys in wrestling, and your name was on there. How did you initially hear about it? Did you read it? Did someone tell you about it?
Well, what happened was it was Thanksgiving morning, and somebody had sent me an email, said that something was on WWE.com about me, and I clicked on the link, and there I was, and WWE was making me out to be a turkey, you know, in a not very nice way. It's kind of like trying to make a jerk out of me. And what happened is, you know, at first, you know, it was Thanksgiving Day, and I was just trying to enjoy the day with the family and, you know, have a good time. And then, you know, I didn't think much of it, but as the day went on, people called, people texted, got a lot of emails, and before you know it, you know, my family had read it, a lot of people had read it, you know, and fans, and everybody's just, you know, texting me and emailing me and, you know, Twittering and stuff. And I was like, you know, I said, well, let me just try and enjoy the day. But then, you know, as the day went on and I saw, you know, my fiance's, you know, son get really upset and start crying, or a couple of kids were crying, you know, and he's autistic, you know, it just made me upset. And I said, you know what, I got to say something. So, I mean, I did the Bill Apter interview. I called out WWE on it. You know, I spoke to Glad. I had it removed. But, I mean, you know, if you try to, you know, say something about somebody, you know, say something in a positive way. Talk about Big Vito and his career. I started wrestling in WWF back in 1991. I mean, I've been wrestling on and off for the WWE for 20 years. I've done a lot of charity work. I've wrestled for every major promotion out there. I've accomplished a lot of great things in wrestling. Talk about the good I do in the community. Don't try and knock me and make a fool of me on Thanksgiving. You know, with, you know, all my fans, the people who love me, the people who stand behind me. I still wrestle today. I still wrestle in a dress. Don't mock me. You know what I mean? Don't you have an anti-bullying policy? Aren't you involved with trying to make Be a Star program? You know, when you do things that are hypocritical, how is people supposed to view you as positive? You know, that dress gimmick came along because Vince and Stephanie asked me to do it. I did it. I did it the old school way. I lived it. I lived it for a year. And not only did people look up to me, but for every person, you know, for every addict woman out there, for every child who was beaten, for every, you know, person who was homosexual, bisexual, a transgender person, you know, who never had the guts to live their life and step out in a dress, you know, I spoke values, and, you know, they all said, I wish I could be you just for one day. And I'd say, why? Just to have the courage to be myself. And I'm not any of those things. I was just doing what I had to do, you know. And, you know, I'm glad I had that kind of influence on people. I'm glad I made that kind of impact in the world, you know. And now they come back and they want to make fun of me. You know, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it. I've never knocked any of the major organizations I've ever worked for. I never knocked anybody on, you know, on the internet. I never knocked anybody in an interview. You know, I could say a lot of things, but I choose not to. I choose to put a positive spin on things. Just don't knock me. Just to knock me. If you have a purpose behind it, say it. But you want to fight, you want to be a bully, let the biggest bully in the lot come after you. Hey, John Laurinaitis. Hey, Raw GM. let the toughest man everywhere address come and step to you on Monday Night Raw, and we'll see what you're all about. Bring me back. Let's see what's up. I bet you the people will love it. I bet you the fans would love it. I bet you even WWE would love it.
Mm-hmm. No,
I'm not afraid of nothing.
You said when you contact them, they end up taking it down. Did they apologize, or did they say anything to you, like in reply, or did they just take it down?
Nothing. They didn't put out a public apology. They didn't do anything to refute it. They didn't do anything to make it better. You know what I mean? They're trying to make me like a sap, and I didn't appreciate that. So if you like to bully people, let Big Vito come back on Monday Night Raw. Let me stand up for myself. Let me come on there against John Laurinaitis. How about a WrestleMania match? Toughest man to ever wear a dress against John Laurinaitis, the biggest bully in the yard. Let's see how that goes. I bet you the fans would love it.
Did you ever wrestle Johnny Ace back when he was in his wrestling days?
I wrestled him one time in Old Japan.
Mm-hmm. What was that experience like?
Hey, I was trying to prove myself. He was the Old Japan booker, and I tried to school him, and I out-wrestled him. You know what I mean? I gave 150%. And I remember him saying, "Man, calm down, relax." I wasn't calming down. I wasn't relaxing. My tag team partners are Steve Williams and Gary Albright. And, back then in 1998, before I made ECW, I was had a very good run in Puerto Rico and USWA. I just ate a bunch of asses and took names, and I didn't care who I was in there with. And on that particular tour, I pinned the number one man in all the world, Bizarre, All Japan Pro Wrestling Battle Royal. And you can look it up because it's in the record books.
Mm-hmm. Now, was John Laurinaitis head of talent relations when you were in WWE?
Yes, he was. He's the one who actually hired me for WWE, and he's the one who actually fired me from WWE.
Well, what was the reasoning he gave you for letting you go?
Standard reason, like everybody else gives you. Creative has nothing for you. But the week before that, Mike Bucci and Steve Kerner come down to Ohio Valley, and I was going down there every week. I was not on the road voluntarily. I never sat home, and I never took a paycheck from WWE without earning it. I was down in developmental every week. I was not on the road. So I worked on a Muay Thai gimmick, and I perfected it. I was training in Muay Thai 3 times a week. I was good enough to be Deep South heavyweight champion. I went to OVW. I was wrestling down there as well. And they told me, they said, well, you're ready to come up to TV. So we'll put that in our report. And I know Mike Bucci personally. He wouldn't lie to me. He was my friend from way back. And Steve Kern had always respected me. He never had a reason to lie to me either. So, and Al Snow at the time told me, he says, Vito, you're ready. You don't need to be here no more. So I was ready to go. And then they, and then that happened. And they just called me up and they said, Vito, you're being released. Creative has nothing for you. Which I found was strange.
Do you think that they leave it open, like they would have you back at some point in time, or anything like that?
They always say that, but you never know with the WWE. When they have something for you, they call you. But you know what? I didn't take this very lightly what they said, and I didn't take it, I took it to heart what they did. You don't come and mock somebody, especially somebody who's made you money, who got a gimmick over, who is, a credible talent, a resume like I have, and somebody who's done everything every wrestler out there wishes they can do in the sport. I've been the champion at all levels. I'm very well respected in the community. I do a lot of charity work, but nobody mentions that. But they all want to talk bad and call you a turkey and make derogatory things. And, a lot of people have been posting on Twitter. A lot of people have been posting on the Facebook page for WWE. A lot of people have been emailing the WWE Universe, John Laurinaitis, as well. They want to see Big Vito back on TV. So put it out there to the people. Big Vito back in the WWE to take on John Laurinaitis, the big bully.
I'd like to see. We got a few people here in line. We got to make a little bit of noise. We'll get to him. 813 area code. Who are you?
That'd be me.
All right. What's your name?
My name is Zach.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, Zach, you have a question for Vito?
I do have a question for Vito. Vito, I've been wondering ever since the recent post that WWE, let me quote, called you a turkey. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Now, you said you were personally embarrassed, and you've been explaining that all the time. But was it the fact that they called you a turkey, or did they insult you any further with the, like, possibly your gimmick or anything other, like the charity work that you do or anything else?
No, they called me a turkey and they tried to make me a fool on Thanksgiving. The fact that they put me in a group with a group of wrestlers, like, Michael Cole, he gets paid to be called turkey. He gets paid by the WWE to be abused. The gobbledygooker is a masked character. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't live out his work. Mike Adamle, he's a former announcer. I don't know if he still wrestles for the WWE or works for the WWE, but he's an announcer. I don't think he makes a. I still make a living wrestling. This is what I do for a living. This is how I pay my bills. This is what brings in this brings the butter for my bread. You know what I mean? This is all I do. And when you say something, when a juggernaut like the WWE can say something like that, and it's perception. If the WWE says you're a turkey, people believe it. Promoters believe it. So why would promoters hire me after they labeled me a turkey and made fun of me? Okay? Why don't they say something nice and say something positive, especially since everybody in wrestling and the world today knows I do charity work at the holidays. Why don't you help me instead of trying to hurt me?
Anything else there, Zach?
Actually, no. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for calling in, Zach.
Thank you, Zach, very much.
John Dean's on the line.
Once again, Neil, it's John the One Dean.
All right, do you have a question for Vito?
Yeah, certainly. How are you doing tonight, Vito?
How are you doing tonight? How's everything?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yourself?
All good. What kind of question do you have for me tonight?
Hope it's better than just how are you.
Firstly, I just want to say that I think the WWE is a total crock of shit for what they put by yourself. Personally, I thought when you was in the company, you was one of the most over people there, and you was completely underrated for what you did in the ring.
Well, I thank you for that. I thank you for saying that, and thank you for being a fan and watching me. I appreciate it.
That being said, I do have two questions to yourself. The first one, do you think that WWE misses a gimmick, is the one that you had at the time?
They do miss the gimmick. As you said, do they miss the gimmick?
Well, if not you personally, a gimmick such as your own, the one that you had.
Do you just mean like gimmicks overall? Like you think gimmicks are lacking in wrestling? Is that what we mean?
I think in the WWE they need to bring back characters because a lot of people complain there's nothing to watch, and people need to get into characters and they need to be entertained. When you have everybody looking the same and everybody looking cookie cutter and everybody doing the same thing, what is the difference between, the guys? Having a character on, I mean, Santino is very, very funny. Okay, so I mean, when he comes on, the crowd pops. Mark Henry is a big, the strongest man, in all of pro wrestling. You got the Big Show; he's a giant. Aside from those things, everybody kind of looks the same. Everybody kind of wrestles the same. Everybody has their own individuality. But if you had a character to get behind, if you had somebody to cheer, if you had something to, when Gregory Helms was doing the thing with The Rock and he had the superhero gimmick, that was the greatest thing. You all looked to see what was he going to do next. Mm-hmm. Big Vito in a dress, you wanted to see who was going to get, who was going to get the dress code. You wanted to see his vignettes and where he was going to go next and what he was going to do. But I mean, that's what they lack today. That is exactly what they lack. They lack characters. And people say it all the time. I'm bored with the WWE. I don't like it. I don't like what they have on TV. Everybody complains about John Cena. Everybody complains, about, what there is going on. They have CM Punk who's there, and he speaks his mind, which is great. When they brought The Rock back in, I mean, The Rock is The Rock. Of course you're going to watch because you want to see how The Rock is going to interact. The Miz has come a long way, but they still need characters. They still need people like that to entertain the crowd.
Now, when they came to you with the gimmick of a guy in a dress, like, how much did they tell you about? Was it just basically you're going to be in a dress? Did you come up with like all the different spots you do in the ring and whatnot?
Well, they just what it was is they said, he says, you look like Adrian Adonis when you fight. He says, and meaning that they said, you look angry and you look like a killer, but you're a handsome man. Would you ever think about wearing a dress? I said, of course. You know what I mean? They said, you think, you could wear it outside? I said, I could do anything that, anything you want. I said, there isn't nothing that anybody could do to me that hasn't been done. If somebody's going to pull a gun on me, I mean, I grew up in the streets. I grew up in the projects. I come from that lifestyle. So, I mean, having a gun put to me, hey, I've already had that done. Having somebody pull a knife on me, I've had that done as well. Getting in street fights, in a dress, one-on-one, I put myself in a good position where I know I'm not going to lose. 5 or 6 against one. If it takes 5 or 6 guys to beat up a guy in a dress, I guess your crew is pretty weak. But I said, you know what? I can handle that task too. I ain't afraid. Somebody's going to come down with me. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's how it came about. I mean, and I'm just, I'm the Italian swap guy. I'm the fly Italian guy. I'm used to taking off dresses. I'm used to, looking at picking out lingerie. I never thought in a million years I'd be doing all this stuff for myself. But a lot of people, a lot of females help me with this. And some, in some stores, a lot of men help me as well because I told them, I said, I don't want to look ridiculous. I want it to look the right way. I don't want to come off or be perceived as perverted, or I want to do it in a classy, stylish way. So I learned how to dress. I learned how to do these things. I posed in Playgirl magazine because I carried myself well, because I kept my look, because I had a certain charisma. Men, women, they all thought, it was sexy, and you always take compliments. Doesn't mean I'm gay, doesn't mean anything, but, if men say you're a handsome man, thank you very much, I appreciate it. Women say you're handsome, thank you very much, But wearing the dress stood for a lot more things. It stood for me being able to be that person. And, if you were gay, bisexual, a battered woman, a battered child, there's a tough guy in a dress out there living his, doing his thing. A lot of people wish they had the courage to be me just for one day, and being able to stand up there and fight men in a dress, that meant a lot to a lot of different people. And that's a concept that people forget. I changed my life and my lifestyle to accommodate this gimmick. I was the most recognizable pro athlete in all sports. I wouldn't change a thing with it.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things I always thought was pretty funny when you'd see it on TV was when they would censor out different spots that you were doing. Was that
right.
done because they needed to do that, or did they just thought it kind of added something to it?
No, at first it was it was okay, but then the network said, he says, they said, well, you have to cover up a little bit. So that's when Vince came to me and said, you think you could wear, tidy whities? I said, sure, no problem. It's not a problem. But I mean, after I put on as soon as the tidy whities came, they stopped, blacking out things because I was covered a little bit better.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was okay. But I mean, it wasn't done anything. And one thing I got to say, the boys in the dressing room and the guys in the back I work with, they all stood proud and they all were happy with it because I did it the right way. I did a gimmick the old school way. And, for that, I appreciate them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And for anybody out there who ever thought it was easy, it wasn't. I mean, the toughest thing you probably ever have to do is change your persona, change who you are on the fly. And it's not just wearing a dress; it's being a person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you really,
so I think that answers.
You really embraced the gimmick. I mean, I thought you really made it work, and I'm sure some people might have been given that and just been like, "Oh, I don't want to do this," and then you could tell they don't want to do it, and it wouldn't work. But you really made it work, and I think that's because you love the wrestling business, I would assume.
Thank you very much, and I greatly appreciate it. And that goes for everybody who ever gave me constructive criticism. Everybody who ever helped me, everybody who helped develop me, it goes to them because they took the time to teach me, and I appreciate that. And I'm a finished product of their teachings.
Mm-hmm. Now, which did you prefer, going out there doing as well? You're both you're a tough guy even with the dress, but doing the Italian gimmick or the guy in a dress gimmick.
I love the dress. The dress, I have a lot of fun. I show my personality. I mean, what could you say? I mean, I enjoyed it. I still enjoy it. I still do it today. You know what I mean? So, I can't say I don't enjoy it. I mean, it's the best gimmick ever. You get to laugh, you forget your problems, you go out there, smile, you dance, and everybody enjoys it. And for those 15 minutes that I'm out there, all the people in the place are laughing, kids are happy, moms are happy, dads are happy, and nobody looks at it any different than a guy just having a good time and kicking some butt and wearing a dress.
Now, I play like devil's advocate. I want to know, like if someone would say, turkey, that's not really a really big insult. How would you answer that?
It is an insult because you're including me in something that you're making a jest of me, making fun of me. I'm a turkey for what? I was ranked one of the 50 greatest gimmicks of all time. So if I'm in the 50 greatest gimmicks of all time, and then, you come around and say, oh, you're a turkey. Why am I a turkey? Why would you say that? It was some guy down at WWE.com who thought he was being funny, not being funny. He didn't do his homework, and if you wanted to pick on gimmicks, you take a guy like the Gobbledygooker who wears a mask. You pick on guys who maybe no longer wrestle, or maybe some guys who weren't successful, or maybe not could pick on anybody at all. Well, you have a whole roster full of WWE employees that you can make fun of. Michael Cole is one. They have the Miz can be one. Mark Henry can be one. The Great Khali could be one. And you can take their bloopers because they're paid to accept it. Doesn't matter. But when you pick on guys who are not in the company no more, and you pick on guys who are trying to make a living and doing their thing outside the WWE, why crap on them? Why say anything at all? Be positive. You're supposed to be a positive company. You have your anti-bullying policy. If somebody's making fun of you and they say they're not, they really are making fun of you. It's their words that they profess to the young audience, adults, and everybody worldwide. So here they are doing it to me. Why?
That's part
Makes sense, doesn't it, fella?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of their. I mean, that's all over the TV and the website, anti-bullying, and then there's an actual list of people that they're making fun of on the same website. It is kind of, like you said, hypocritical. Did you have a question? No, go on, sir.
No, I just think that when you say so, it's like your radio show. If you say you stand by something and then you go to do the total opposite of something, makes you guys look bad as a radio show. But if you try to put on the best news and the best rated wrestling, up-to-date wrestling news, and you don't go back 10 years, you don't talk about a bunch of garbage, it makes you guys credible. Then people will listen to your show. If you guys talk about nonsense, you curse, you joke, you spit, you do things that are not desirable to listen to, then you guys will look like a bunch of creeps. And that's not what you want. You want to come off as a professional radio show, and you want people to listen. Tonight, people are listening because you have something of good quality on your show tonight.
It's a big news item right now. I noticed some people was on my Facebook earlier in the week, like Ryan Katz from XPW and stuff, and he was talking about the turkey thing, and he said he kind of like what you said earlier. He said it wasn't so much the turkey name, but it's the fact that they say that, and then maybe people aren't going to hire you, or maybe fans that do see you like on an indie show, they might think, that's a guy, it's a turkey. Why do I want to cheer this guy?
That's right. It's devil's advocate. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Perception is key. How the WWE sees you, that's how people portray you. But why not say good things about it? He's a Cape Crusader when it comes to Christmas. Did anybody mention that last year? I mean, I helped over 13,000 families with the Marine Corps to make sure people had gifts. Did they mention that I went to numerous amount of hospitals and gave out gifts to sick children in hospitals? Went to the cancer unit, went to the burn unit. Sat with people, helped people. Do people mention that I've been doing that kind of work for the past 15 years? Absolutely not. Did WWE mention it in a positive way? No. They just said, Vito, and I'm going to say this, and please nobody get offended. I'm going to talk Italian there. They said, Vito, you're a jack-off. You know what I mean? And that's not what I am at all. I am a member in the community where I help mentor kids. I help teach kids. I mentor young wrestlers today. Like a tag team like Zero Tolerance. They're trying to make their way in wrestling, I help them out all the time. There's other guys in the wrestling business who need a lot of critique and need some schooling, and I do it. You know what I mean? Because I want to. The object of the game is to pass it on. It's just like the greats from my past have passed it on to me. I'm trying to pass it on to them. Some people like it, some people don't. If you don't like it, I got two things to tell you. You want me to tell you the truth, or you want me to lie to you? So if you didn't want me to tell you the truth, then be prepared. Have thick skin. If you don't have thick skin in the wrestling business, then you need to leave. And if you had to train the way I trained 20 years ago, okay, you need to get out, because the way you guys are training now, everybody says they're a pro wrestler. But I bet if you had to do a week of Big Vito training, you'd quit.
Eric Lee Lewis here in the chat room. He wants to know, do you know that Joey Styles runs WWE.com, and what's your relationship like with Joey Styles?
Well, I called him, and he hasn't returned my phone calls. They say Joey Styles has changed. I can't knock him, but I mean, he felt free enough to say things about me, on the .com. I haven't heard from him, so I really don't know, so I don't have a comment.
Intro, did you have a question?
Mr. Moxley from our message board, he wants to know some of your thoughts of being in the Baldies in ECW and what it was like working with New Jack.
I thought the Baldy gimmick was probably one of the best groups that was ever put together, and it really signified us as a group in the ECW.
Mm-hmm.
It became a real popular group. Working with New Jack, Balls, and Axel, that's where I really, really learned how to do hardcore, and that was like my first taste of it. And I give them a lot of guys a lot of credit for teaching me, and it helped me go to WCW, and then all of a sudden they said, Vito, you want to do hardcore? And I said, okay. And then I was, fighting Terry Funk on Nitro for the hardcore title, and you can't get any better than that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so I give credit to those guys, and I thank them a lot. If I would have stayed in the Baldies and we kept that group together, who knows if we would have made it to WWE?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows if we would have went to WCW together? I don't know. You know what I mean? But, when WCW, called me, and, they said, we'd like to make you the number one draft choice of WCW for the year 1999, of course you're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, it was a no-brainer. When I went to Paul Lee and I asked him, and this is the truth, I told him, I said, Paul, I don't want to go. I found my niche here. He said, Vito, you have to go. He said, this is what you've been waiting for. This is what you've been doing. He says, I can't compare the money that they're going to pay you. I can't. I know you like it here. I love it here. And I was established in ECW. And I didn't want to go. I didn't want to start over again. And he said, you've got to go. So, I went, and I was successful. I became one of the top baby faces there. The Mamalukes, one of the best tag teams that ever lived in WCW.
Mm-hmm.
Hands down. We're still famous today. We just reunited. If we went back on TV tomorrow, we'd be a draw in the WWE or TNA.
Mm-hmm.
What was Johnny the Bull like? I guess he was fairly green at the time, but I really liked him. Did you help him a lot? Learn the ropes?
He was nine months in the power plant. They came to me and said, Vito, you only got 9 months. Can you teach him and take care of him? And I took care of Johnny the Bull, and I made sure he didn't do anything he wasn't supposed to do, and any of the hard stuff I took care of. I mean, I taught him, and I taught him the right way, and he was like my brother. You know what I mean? And we're still good friends and brothers today. We might not see each other all the time, but we could sit down, go have a drink, sit down and talk about the old times, share a room like it was nothing. So I mean, those are things you don't forget. And, one thing he never did, he never forgot about what I did for him. And I always love him for that. So if that answers your question. I mean, that's the best I could do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did Paul Heyman, see you on the Indies before you went to ECW? How did you, get involved with ECW?
Well, I was kind of at a crossroads at in my career, in my personal life. And, I had wrestled, I had went to, I was wrestling in WWF at the time. I was doing enhancement work, and then I went to NOW to go to Japan. I went to the All-Star Wrestling in Puerto Rico. I came back from there. I went and did more independence. I went to the Dominican Republic to wrestle for Jack Finino, which was WCW over there, which was a big organization. From there, I went to USWA, where I got some more experience and worked for Jerry Lawler. From there, I went home, and then I wrestled for 3 years. I lived in Puerto Rico for Carlos Colon. I mean, that's probably the best schooling I ever had. And then when I came back from there, of course, maybe, things in your personal life and things I needed to change and things weren't going good. So before I went there, I went to All Japan, and I had one of the best tours wrestling against the best in the world. So I mean, what could I say at that point? But then, like, at my home life and everything, I just said, you know what? I think it's time, because everybody thought I was too good for my own good and I was cocky, but I just wanted to be the best, and people misunderstood that. And being the best at something, it wasn't like I hung out with my buddies and I didn't go and hang out with a bunch of wrestlers. I had a one-track mind. I want to be the best, I want to be the best, I want to be the best. And I packed my bag and went to ECW, the Elks Lodge, and I walked in, I talked to Taz. I asked him, I said, I'm not sure to try to start anything. I just would like, I don't know if I could have a job here. So they looked at me, and Paulie and Taz and Paulie said, okay, come next week and we'll give you a tryout. So I went the following week. They gave me a tryout. I said, okay, come back next week to the ECW Arena. I went into the ECW Arena. They wanted to test my attitude. They said, okay, go into six-man tag. We don't want you to do anything. You're going to take the pin, and that's it. So, and it was against a bunch of guys, really never did much, and all good guys, and I wound up being really good friends with them. And I took everybody's finish. I made sure. And they said, okay, Vito, come back. And that's the way I started learning how to eat humble pie. And that's the way I started learning how to be a professional right there in the ECW. So, and I'm very grateful for that.
Now, I was a big ECW fan. I'm watching Saturday nights on, it was like a Spanish channel, like 2 a.m. in the morning. I think it was, I think you had a match with RVD. It could be somebody else, but I think it was RVD that was one that, like, I really noticed you, and, like, people started talking about you, and then we started seeing you a lot more on ECW.
Well, was that in the ECW arena?
It could have been.
Well, if it was in the ECW arena, that was the first time anybody ever had a chant against RVD, because at the time I was wrestling a Skull Von Crush, and they were saying SVK, RVD chants, if you remember that night.
Yeah.
And the place had half the people there, and I probably shocked all the wrestling when I was giving it to RVD, and people were like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, they couldn't believe it, but, I mean, I've been wrestling like that for 9 years already. So, I mean, it was nothing for me. And every time everybody would see my name on the wall, they go, oh, man, I got to wrestle Vito. So they all knew they had to be ready to go. You know what I'm saying? But it was an honor to work with those guys. And those guys we were a different kind of group. And it was probably the best close-knit group of guys in the best dressing room I was ever in.
Mm-hmm. This place.
Somebody just emailed me, you know what, we're talking about WWE and all that stuff, and them calling me a turkey, right? But right now, on 24/7 on the classics, who's on TV? Starcade, 1999. Dick Vito and Johnny the Bull. We're on there now. Go to WWE Classics. Watch us. Ain't no turkey here. I'm on the classics. I was there. Starcade.
One of the best DDTs, I thought. Now, let's see. We got Gene the Drunk's on the line.
Not drunk tonight. Nice and sober, baby.
Excellent. Good man.
Hey, how's it going?
Vito, how you doing, sir?
Okay. You have a good question for me?
Actually, I got a great question for you. I was a big fan of Skull Von Crush, and I loved the different gimmicks that she had, like with the FBI and then Big Vito's Skull Von Crush gimmick. What gave you the idea for the Skull Von Crush gimmick? Like, where did you draw, your ideas from to build those characters?
Well, I mean, it started out when I went to wrestling school at Johnny Rosin. They said, well, you look like Baron Von Raschke, because you got to remember I was a basketball player. I really wasn't into the weights. I was just a ball player, So, I went in there and they said, I look like Baron Von Raschke. So I said, be a German. So, I started out as Ivan Crush, and then it was Skull Von Crush, and then I just started doing a whole German gimmick. And then once I got out of Puerto Rico to USWA overseas and I came home, I started to make it like a skinhead gimmick. And that's when I became Skull Von Crush. And then once I started doing that, people recognized it. Said, "Man, this is good." And then when I started to speak English, miraculously, with all those English lessons I was taking, I started to become Vito the Skull LaGrasso from Staten Island, New York, and that kind of worked. And Paul said, "Why don't you just be yourself?" And that's the best character you can be, is be yourself. So there I was, a kick-ass guy from Staten Island, and then that's where, we got to the Baldies, because that's actually how I dress all the time. Leather hat, leather jacket, black Adidas, black shirt. That was what I wore all the time. So I was like, okay, I'm being me. And then when I went to WCW, I was just being me again. The FBI, I was being me. The TNA, I was being me. So being me would work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. One more question before I go. Wrestling has changed so much, especially over the last, I want to say, 5 to 10 years. What are some of the pros and some of the cons when you watch wrestling programming today in 2011?
Well, the one thing I could say is there's a lack of characters, okay? And that keeps people's interest when there's characters on TV. I think that, the guys coming up, they all look great. The bodies have changed. You got to be in shape. You got to have abs. You got to have a certain look. But the young guys coming up today don't have that luxury to go to a territory and learn like I did, and that's where you learn. You can only learn so much in a wrestling school or a developmental. They can't teach you everything. So that's what they lack today. And trying to teach somebody on the fly how to be a professional, it's tough, and it's tough for the guys up there. But I think what lacks is people want to have the characters. They don't see the Legion of Doom no more. You don't see, The Rock is. You still have The Undertaker. He's probably the only gimmick they have. But as far as gimmicks and having an attraction that you see, a guy in a dress right now would probably go over huge over there. Having The Rock come back, hey, he's an icon. You know what I'm saying? And Steve Austin, and you're going back, and then if Cactus Jack came back, Mankind, and doing all that kind of, that's what drew the people. That's what they like. That's what they love. The Mamalukes, if they were to go in WWE, they would rock the house. Imagine having the Mamalukes with Santino as a manager. The promos and the vignettes alone would be hysterical. Mm-hmm. Are you listening, WWE?
You brought up Santino a few times, and he's actually one of my favorite guys around. Do you think they sometimes kind of miss the boat on him? I know he's really over with the crowd, but they don't really push him as like a credible wrestler.
Well, it's not even that. He's entertaining, and then once they found him to be entertaining, they put him in a certain position. They don't put him on enough. They don't give him enough, I don't think. But everybody thinks he's a clown now. I think, but if they put him in a serious character, as being as a manager of an Italian tag team like the Mamalukes, I think he'd get over great. And I think the vignettes we could do, like we did with Disco Inferno and me and Johnny the Bull back in the WCW, I think it would revolutionize things. Imagine if you had the Mamalukes versus the Dudleys, or the Mamalukes versus DX on TV. Mm-hmm. Now you're talking some rivalries. How about the Nitro Wars, where we had the Mamalukes against DX? We were tag team champions, and so were the New Age Outlaws. Mm-hmm. Even though I used to steal their line when I used to go home with the championship belt and walk in, you didn't know! You know what I mean? So I look in the mirror, and I say it to myself, and I have a big smile on my face, because there I was, tag team champion of the world. So, it was a great feeling. But those are fun times, and that's what you want. That's what you miss.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for calling in, Gene.
Thanks.
A lot of people here in the chat has been asking about Vince Russo, because I always heard that you were you and Vince Russo, I think you guys did a radio show, I guess, before he was writing for WWF magazine. Is that all true? And were you guys buddies? Or?
Vince Russo came up through Johnny Rod's through the Unpredictable Johnny Rods, and then I was the first guy he ever managed. Vince Russo then was being an interviewer for Johnny, and then we went on to do a radio show. Vince had a radio show called Vicious Vincent's, and I would go up every Friday, and we'd do the live radio, and it was a very popular radio. So when I started doing WWF TVs, we used to do the Arena Club, and we used to entertain the people at the Arena Club with our live radio show. We had Virgil on, we had Mr. Perfect, we had a lot of different people on. So, I mean, it was a great thing that we were doing, and that's how it got started. And Vince was telling me, I used to tell Vince, I said, Vince, you got a degree in writing. I said, why don't you try and, try to get yourself a job at WWE. He says, they won't hire me. I don't do anything. I said, Vince, you got everything you need. You got all the credentials there. So he was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. So when he finally put it down there, I mean, they gave him a job, and they gave him a spot as a magazine editor. He did the magazine really good, and then he moved up from there. He was my buddy, and I helped him throughout, and he used to call me when I was in Puerto Rico, and he'd say, how do you do this, and how do you do that? And I used to help him along, you know what I mean? And, and the rest is history.
Mm-hmm. Would you ever be interested in doing something behind the scenes, like a writer or booker for wrestling?
Of course, that's what I was doing in Arizona, and if they asked me to come behind the scenes and do it, I have 21 years experience. There's nobody better than me. I know I could do it, and I know I could do it well.
Mm-hmm. Would you ever go back to TNA?
Say it again?
Would you ever go back to TNA? Impact Wrestling?
Of course. I still wrestle today. If TNA called me, of course I'd go back. Hopefully it would be for the anti-bullying policy. Hopefully it would be for some good stuff. I'm willing to go back to whichever promotion wants me, and I'm all open to do whatever. I've always been like that, and I always put my best foot forward. But I just don't take crap from nobody. It's just like I'm fighting the WWE, and Big Vito LaGrasta never took shit from nobody.
Mm-hmm. Van wants to know, what was your experience like on Shipmates, hosted by Chris Hardwick?
On Shipmates?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Shipmates was probably one of the great okay? And I will tell you that Shipmates won the best episode of the year, best couples of the year. I went on there, and they tried to hook you up with somebody who you didn't like. I like dark hair, dark eyes. They hooked me up with a blonde muscle chick. I went on there, and my boys, when I was hanging out down to Jersey Shore, they told me, Vito, you think you can go on the show? I said, yeah, I can go on the show. That's because the one guy who went on there, he bombed, and he says, all right, I'll give you a guy your number, let's see if you could do it. So I went on there. I acted like a gentleman, throwing that Staten Island pizzazz around. I told the girl, I said, listen, I'm not here to get in your pants. I'm not here to do it. I just want to have a good time. I says, and, if we could be friends, that would be great. At the end, I'm not going to say anything bad about you. If you like me or not, hey, fine, I don't care. I wound up having the best time on a cruise, all expenses paid. I got to dance with 50, 60 women. I got to do a striptease in front of 2,000 people. I was macking. I was having the best time of my life, and I'm still friends with the girl today, and she wound up getting married and having a family of her own.
Oh, excellent. Let's see here. We got Joel calling in from Portugal.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there we go. Hey, Vito, how you doing?
Hey, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing quite fine. Listening to the interview. I have two questions, if you don't mind, that I ask.
Okay.
The first question was, you were in WCW in the later years of the company, by I believe 1999, early 2000s. Yeah. And also you've been in TNA in the early years of the company. Did you saw a lot of similarities between the two companies in terms of the locker room and the fact that during 2004, I believe Vince Russo was the booker? Do you saw many similarities in terms of either positive or negative similarities between WCW and TNA?
Yes, they are. The one thing I could say about the WWE, there's one boss and one boss only. Mm-hmm. Same could be said for ECW. There's one boss and one boss only. In WCW, there was many bosses. And they took that concept and, if something wasn't right, they changed the book. They changed this, they changed that, they changed the other thing. In TNA, it was the same thing. They went from one to the other, to the other, to the other. And, that's why one of the reasons I left, because it was just like WCW, and it's still that way today. You know, there's really not one legitimate boss until Bruce Pritchard came in. Right now, he has the reins. Right now, he's running things. You know, the show seems to be doing good. You know, right now it seems to be pretty calm there. Whether guys like it or not, that just goes with the new boss coming in. He's going to shake things up. He's going to make things good. But hopefully, they get to stabilize their roster and get to stabilize the back and make it good. So, I mean, in that sense, you know, they do kind of mesh and they all kind of run the same. Hopefully, now they're on stable ground.
Okay. My second question to ask you is, I hope I'm not mistaken. You've been doing some European bookings. You've done some shows in Europe. Do you enjoy wrestling in Europe? Because realistically, there isn't a big company that is, you know, like in America you have WWE, you have TNA. In Europe, there's no such thing as that. Do you, as a wrestler, enjoy working here in Europe, nonetheless?
I love working there in Europe, especially when I go over there in the dress, because the people really receptive to it, and the people love it. And when I come out, when I was wrestling for All Star with Brian Dixon, I came out to Dancing Queen. Talk about dancing the 5 minutes of Dancing Queen. You know, 2.5 minutes in the beginning, 2.5 minutes at the end, or even longer. They used to let a girl play out the whole song. And in England, they let you wrestle on a stage, okay, where the ring is. So you're talking about having a whole theater stage to dance on, and you're shaking and doing it like you're a rockette and entertaining the crowd, dancing in the ring, dance with the ring announcer. You know, and when I went there, it was great because the people were just singing and dancing in the aisles and singing Dancing Queen. And, you know, when I went to Ireland, the same thing, and France and Spain and everywhere when I went to NWE. I mean, people love it, and people, you know, anywhere I went, they always chanted my name. And they said, man, how are you so over these places? I said, you know, sometimes it's just like that. I mean, when you have the people in the palm of your hand, you know, you could say it's a gift, and I'm one of the lucky ones, you know, so I'm glad that people enjoy me.
Mm-hmm. Have you been to Portugal? I'm not sure if I saw you in Portugal. Have you been here?
I think so, yes.
With SmackDown, probably, or something?
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
I thought maybe you just saw him walk down the street or something.
No.
You're stalking the man.
No. You would have no proof of that.
All right. Thank you for calling in, Joel. You're a good man.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, bye.
Now, I know you said you're still wrestling today. Now, if someone would like to book you. How would they get in touch?
They can get in touch with me on Facebook at Vito LaGrasso. They can get in touch with me on Twitter at Team NV. They can get in touch with me on Vito Bookings at Yahoo. One thing I want to tell everybody is I want them to tweet the WWE Universe. Tell them, you know, up Vito's dress, bring Big Vito back to WWE. Mm-hmm. You know, tweet John Laurinaitis. You know, my Twitter is Team NV. And for all the people out there, let's get behind me and let's fight the bully. And this would be happening to nobody. But how about this? WrestleMania, John Laurinaitis, Big Vito. Big Vito takes on the bully. I think people would love it.
I like to see it. So everybody listen, I want you to do what Vito just said. You got to get on the Twitter campaign here, help the man out, help out a good man, and I'd love to see you back in WWE. Love to see you back in TV.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me tonight. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah,
and if you guys want to book me also, go to Lightning Entertainment, speak with Gina, and she'll get you a good rate. Tell them Big Vito sent you.
Excellent. Can we skip here for a second?
Hello, wrestling fans. This is Nunzio, the true full-blooded talent, and you're listening to In Your Head Online.